Good morning, everyone. My name is Benny Olsen. I work with clients here at Microchannel to explore how we can help solve the business challenges. Thank you for joining us today in our webinar on field service and digital transformation. And as you can see from our agenda, we will cover some of the key hot topics in the field from a business and technology perspective, followed by an end-to-end scenario to show how this can be done. Since the goal is to provide an overview, it won't be too heavy from a technical perspective. Towards the end, we'll have some time for a Q&A, so please feel free to ask away during the session. Since there's a lot to cover in this 30-minute webinar, let's jump in. Looking at the research carried out over the past years, what actually stands out is the critical nature of being easy to deal with and valuing your customers' time. If you turn this around, though, it makes sense that customers with poor processes, which could include things like first-time fixes being pretty low, they struggle to keep or satisfying the customers. If you add to that the cost of repeat visits and inefficient processes, you get a really bad double whammy where the cost of servicing your customers goes up, as well as the risk of losing them altogether in the process. So what we'll see here are some examples of indicators for scenarios where, as a company, you should be concerned for your field services processes. These are actually a lot of real ones that we've come across over the years with our customers and prospects. And they all add to the compounding effect, causing the rift between the company and the customers to widen. Each of the above has a direct causality with poor customer service and inefficient processes. If you take a dollars and cent view on these indicators, and the day-to-day impact for a business can be very, very real. Poor processes that aren't customer-centric can literally cost hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. So, for example, if you lose an important customer because you're sending the wrong people there to see them, or you get the invoicing wrong repeatedly, you're not respecting the time, or you're not being easy to work with for that matter. So two key reasons that they will consider alternatives going forward. These are all aspects to consider as part of the case for change with field service operations if you fall into these kind of areas that we've been looking at here. So if you're looking at this, what have successful field service operations learned from information like this over the years, and what are they doing today? What a lot of them have in common is that they have a bit of a methodology of putting the customer first. They provide connected interactions across their service chain, and they empower the organization to be successful. They've moved from a past where it was either customer satisfaction or productivity to a situation where they're digitally transforming their field service operations in a way that allows them to achieve both. And that's really the goal, and that's what we're going to be working through today. They've moved really from scheduling or break-fix type support to just-in-time preventative maintenance. Because of the advent of machines being able to communicate back with us at scale, we can look at actual consumption from an object or a unit or an asset and alert when it needs to be looked at. Take, for an example, an elevator, where different levels of use in hours will tell you when it needs to be servicing, or if you look at it from a vibrations perspective in the motor, this gives you a direct sense of the real state and need for the service for this elevator. This allows us to go out proactively and when needed, instead of a scheduled basis or when a problem is reported by the customer. So the benefit for the customer is that they have no problems to report. We can leverage our resources better and more efficiently, and the customer finds us easy to work with and have no real reason to change providers. If it sounds really expensive to achieve this, then it's actually not that bad. According to Gartner, and we'll come back to this in a bit more detail towards the end, the average field service deployment pays basically for itself in less than a year. So if that sounds good to you, let's go and have a look at this in a real life scenario. We will show you today how you can have access to predictive scheduling, routing, and monitoring to get information from sensors on serviced equipment. We'll see how visual auto-generated analytics provide the consultant with access to near real-time feeds from the asset under service and enables them to communicate back to the device. We'll show how you can predict asset maintenance needs, which allows us to provide an augmented or even artificial intelligence to aid in the support process as needed instead of on a schedule or as things breaks, as we covered before. We'll also show this how we can work from a mobility perspective and how the end part of this can integrate invoicing and customer service and surveys and such. So there's a lot to cover, but that should be hopefully a good setting for us. Now, obviously, we have to show you this in one area or another. So we've chosen today to take you through this using Microsoft Dynamics 365. We'll be seeing capabilities in here from Field Service, the IoT solution in Azure, BI, customer service, and there'll be an integration with Office 365, as well as a small piece of operations in this part. So this is an end-to-end solution that we're going to show. When you're looking at the connected field service, we'll be showcasing the process from starting with sensors, which are trigger points for the process and provides real-time feed through us. We will integrate this with the customer service side for triage, escalation, and customer relationship management in the process, as well as field service coordination, and making sure we get the right person at the right place at the right time. There'll be mobility shown in here, invoicing, and customer surveys and dashboards towards the end. So basically, the process that you see here on the screen is what we're going to try to illustrate to you today. So setting the scene, I'd like to introduce you to elevator Coney E, which is an elevator that's under a service agreement, and it's letting us know through its sensors that its motor temperature is climbing outside of normal operating parameters. From our service team side, we have Chris, who's a mobile technician who specializes in keeping equipment such as the Coney E model in great condition. Chris, one of the main things he needs is access to the right information in near real time around the state of the elevator and when they start deviating from its operating parameters. Let's hop right in and have a look at this. So as mentioned, we're starting off here from the elevator's perspective. What we're seeing here is a simulator that feeds data into our environment, into Azure here. So it can be replaced with real sensors as easy as this, but we obviously need to illustrate somehow. So what we're seeing here is basically a sensor from our elevator telling us something is out of the ordinary, going above the temperature range that should. But from your perspective, you can replace this with virtually any kind of sensor. It could be a wearable sensor telling you your pulse is high on average and reports back when it reaches a certain point, or an average over time. It could be a pressure gauge telling you you're stressing the system or there's a risk of breakage in the system. Air conditioning units running hot, so temperature measurement. Again, it could be anything like that. So in either case, we have this as our trigger point. And once it's reached this certain point, or if it's using machine learning and a trend is spotted that is of concern, then it lets us know and passes the information through to us, automatically generating an alert, which automatically creates a support case, which can then be put through a service queue and then be picked up by the customer service team. So what we're seeing here on this screen is our support team looking at a case that has come in through one of these alerts. So their main focus in this process is to look at these things on a triage basis, to try to address as much as they possibly can up front without necessarily having to send out a technician to look at this. So to help them in this, they have knowledge base records. They will be communicating back and forth with the customers, keep track on notes. They can see recent cases and activities that are occurring. And in this case, we're going to hop in and have a look at the actual customer asset in question. So this is looking at the elevator, Coney E again here, from what we're looking at the sensor. So when we're coming in here, now we're actually looking at the asset in question under maintenance in basically real time. We've got a lot of information in here to help the customer service staff, but also the field service staff later on as required to get that overview about the assets in question. We have a risk profile, which is based on business rules, which is no AI here. It's just using what we call augmented intelligence, basically, where we're looking at the age of a specific asset, and we're saying that because of its age, it's low risk in this case, it's less than 10 years old, saying how long was it since it last had a service. That was done really, yesterday or today, saying that that's low risk. But because of the number of IoT alerts that are coming in and being reported back to us, we can say there's something that's going on here. So we're not doing a servicing right here, clearly. We can see the past work orders, and there are a few. We can see all the alerts. But most importantly on this screen is the real-time feed that comes directly from the device. So in this case, if I go and highlight a section, for example here, I can get the current real-time feed of the, in this case, the temperature gauge here measuring what's going on. And as we can see here, it's clearly too high in this process. But also within here, it's very important to note that we can have related sensors forming a bigger picture for our analysis. So when you're doing the triage or when you're the field service technicians, this information is accessible to you from a mobile perspective as well as from when you're in the office. This all helps you support it. We won't see this one tick over because it refreshes only every minute at this stage. So we come back to the caseworker has now made a decision that this needs to be escalated. And what they do then is they simply convert this to a work order. Important in this process is that we're not double handling information. We're not re-entering it. We're not going from one system to the other. We're staying in the one environment, moving from the case side of the system through to the field service side where this has now been handed over to. In here, you can see a very similar interface. And here now we're looking at this from a dispatcher's perspective where they have to take the information from the case, which they can relate back to through down here, as well as view all the information and then make a decision on what type of scope is required for us to carry out this, how long is it going to take. We'll see down here, what time do we need to do so they can coordinate that with the customer potentially. And also we can highlight where they're actually going. So if they're going to the same location as always, as in the case with elevators, then obviously that wouldn't change. But if it's a breakdown on a road, we can update the lat and long for this, and the map that we will see soon for the field service technician will be reflecting that. We can say what the tasks are, how long they're expected to do, so we can give clear instructions to our staff, and we can even let them know what, if any, products they may need to bring with them. So if we know that something is broken through our diagnostics, we can make sure that we're prepared so we only have to do the visit once. Now, moving across to the interesting side, or the more interesting side, is that the dispatcher has at their disposal a very powerful scheduling tool here, which is very visually driven. So at the bottom, we have basically requirements or jobs that are due to be carried out. And as part of this, we will now want to find a good fit. So here's our particular job. And by selecting that, we'll see how the arrow here indicates the job. The map view allows me to focus on what I need to see. So if I want to look at or hide the bookings that are already booked, then I can look at the current requirements and I can zoom in and have a closer look at which one it is. So that's an extremely handy tool. What I also have is the ability to say that, who have we got here? We have Lila Duros. I can suggest that she should go and look at this particular job, which allows me to visually create a new booking for her. And all I have to do is to click a yes to give her this job, and it'll automatically assign that to her next in her queue. If I wanted to have a closer chat with one of the consultants before I book someone out, I can look at their view here, pick up the picture, and if we use the Office 365, as we do in this case, I can set up a Skype chat with them, phone call, video chat, share screen, discuss it, whatever you do, and this information gets stored in Outlook like normal. Closing that one down. Another important aspect in here is the skills tree. So we'll note here that Benny here has got fantastic background and knows everything and every type of elevator there is, whereas Gavin is a little bit more of a junior technician. So when it comes to picking the right resource for the job, we can do that very visually, and also keep an eye on where they're currently up to in this process. Now, it should be noted that each of the jobs that we created, the work order that we created in this case, can also have a set of requirements against it, so that when I go in here and I say I'm going to find the next available person or the most suitable person for this job, I simply click on that and the system will use its smarts to pick the most appropriate resource, or the ones that meet the criteria for that specific job. In this case, I can see Benny has got 28 minutes to get there, so it calculates travel time based on real-time traffic feed. Lila looks like the best option, but I think I'd like to pick Benny because I like to work with his utilization. So all I have to do here is to click book, and it's now created the job for Benny, and everything is updated. See the travel time here. I know he's done with the job, but this is the time here. So he's going to be able to go hit the road right now, and he should be there soon. Okay, so at this stage, the dispatcher has done their job in terms of getting us going, and they hand over to the mobile technician. So the technician works with this companion app, and this is available on all major platforms, and it provides basically the day-to-day running sheet of what they need to do. It's not a full system, it's just a smaller part of it. As part of this, they see, how do I get to this job? They can get their turn-by-turn directions. They can pick up the requirements for the job, what they need to do. They can even look at the products they need to use. So and if they need to add one, they can do that in real time here, which then reports straight back to the system, allowing us to update our inventory through our ERP system integrations in real time. They can even, while they're out, query the warehouse in this case, and they have a look at the product inventory. We're not looking very good at the moment from that perspective. And towards the end of a job, sorry for clicking around a bit here, they can collect a signature from the customer, and they can also make notes and take pictures. I'll let you see that as well. So take a picture of yours truly here in real time, and there we go. And that gets added to a note directly into the file and gets shunted back. So for warranty type scenarios, that's a spectacular thing to do. And following up from this, then once we close the job off from a field technician perspective, that reflects back in the system in real time here. I'll just do this manually from here, which is the other option. And you'll notice how the flag changes from within the system. So what happens then is that to continue this process is, now that we've done our work, we need to finish things off from an administrative perspective. So we're bringing back the job in here. We're changing the status of the job. We're posting it here so it flows all the way through. That's the way we actually getting to do the invoicing automatically here. And if I wanted to here, we'll hand it over and finalize this to the customer service operations side, where they own the process. They can see that how long we spent on this ticket. So when they resolve the case, we can automatically consider that to 2 hours and 15 minutes and field visit. And when we resolve this, if they're on an entitlement, as is the case here, we'll see that our hours, if they're on an hourly plan, are deduced from here. Now, what also happens when customer service closes off a job in this case is that a customer service form is automatically sent out, or we decide to do that manually, which gives us the ability to receive feedback here. So very important in this process is that we keep the customer in the loop and give them a chance to provide feedback. And this survey functionality enables us to do that. We can put in some information and then hit the submit button, and we have a survey carried out. So we've closed the loop now from start to finish. We've gone through from the perspective of the alert coming in. We've gone through the process of having the triage team trying to resolve it. They weren't able to do that. They handed it over to field service. They booked out the right person who went out there at the right time with the right equipment, got the job done, reported back while they're still on the road. So no manual process, no paperwork to hand in on Monday morning. And then from that information, we're now able to straight away going in to invoice it. So automatically, without us doing anything except for changing the status of posting of this, we have automatically generated invoicing information, which when we confirm this invoice and send it off, parses that right into the finance and operations system if you have that kind of an integration. So that takes it then to the very, very end of everything from a start to finish perspective. Now, the last thing to point out here is from a managerial perspective, all this data that's being generated from start to finish is always available in real time. So we can see the number of IoT alerts, for example, over time, and all this information can be drilled into in real time by, for example, device, and I can zoom in on that data. We'll see it's all for this terribly annoying device here. And if we're looking at this from a billing perspective, we can see who we're billing the most to, Century Property Services in this case, and we can see here very quickly as well as the number of active work orders and over this fiscal period and the types of jobs that we're carrying out here. This is just scratching the very, very, very surface on it. We can also do utilization reporting and a lot of other things. And basically, if you can imagine it, if you're collecting the data, we report on it in dashboards. We can also use your Power BI type tools to take this to the absolute next level. So that concludes the start to finish of our demonstration. And just to round off here on this, the one thing to keep in mind is that this was covered a lot of ground very, very quickly here. And we touched a little bit deeper on some things than others. And we'll be carrying out a survey in a moment where you have the chance to vote on topics that you might want to hear more from in the future. If you're not watching this live, feel free to just drop a line to us anyway. We're always interested in what you might want to learn more about in these kind of areas. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Now, just to tie everything up a little bit here, when you're looking at digital transformation, if you're finding that this is something that is going to be of importance to your organization, the main thing I would recommend as a starting point is to make sure that we accept that change is imperative for the future from an organizational perspective, that we evaluate the impact and cost of the drivers of change to your business, so you know where do we need to see change and what's the cost of not doing anything. That you then take a customer first paradigm and include your KPIs in this, which is very important to tie everyone towards that, to change the behaviors, if you will. That you consider your company growth plans and how this impact will be made worse over time if no action is taken urgently to create or defeat the inertia of not doing anything. Then courage, set really audacious goals and try to think outside of the box. Don't worry about the past so much, but focus on the future. Carefully evaluate the technologies available. There's a lot of promises out there that are made, but they have to be proven as well. Try to use as few platforms as possible to achieve it. And one of the key things I think here is find providers that actually share your vision and are able to execute for you. Touching again on how does this pay for itself. Everything costs money. Deploying a field service solution is no different. But the main thing here is to bear in mind what Gartner, for example, says here, that typically 64% of their field service organizations who do this have already achieved a return, which I believe was within like 12-month period. Find that in technician utilization can be increased. That's 63% of the sample saying that they've experienced that. That over half of them have experienced improved customer satisfaction. And if you're running on SLAs, nearly half say that they have a clear improvement in this area, as well as half of them saying they can improve their tracking of costs. So the key thing, bottom line with this, is that the ROI was approximately 10 months from the commencement of a project. So does field service and optimizing that and digitizing that process pay itself off? Yes, absolutely. So love to talk to you guys more about this. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Got my email details here. Please don't hesitate to tag me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a chat with you guys. All right, thank you very much.